For more perspective on the reality on the ground in Gaza, we do want to go to Juliette Touma. She's the Director of Communications for the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees. She's joining us from Amman, Jordan. Juliette, thank you very much for taking time to check in with us.
Thanks for having me.
And certainly on a very, very eventful last hour and a half or so. I wish we were talking about a current active ceasefire. Your organization publicly welcomed this ceasefire and hostage deal that is, at least for now, on pause. And we also heard from your Commissioner General that called for, and I'll read this directly from him, for a rapid, unhindered and uninterrupted humanitarian access to those suffering in the war. One thing is to provide that level of passage when it's possible, but what about the logistics of getting all that aid distributed in Gaza? What authority is even capable of doing it in war-ravaged Gaza?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think what is really, really critical is for this ceasefire to come into effect as soon as possible. So really holding our breath here and hoping for the best also because the lives of millions of people in Gaza and in Israel rely on this deal. With regards to humanitarian aid, what is really needed is a boost of supplies going into the Gaza Strip. Not only humanitarian aid, but also commercial supplies for the markets, for the private sector.
And I'm sure you heard the report from my colleague just a few moments ago before we went to you, and the voice of a woman in Gaza saying that she will not be able to sleep until that ceasefire is in effect. So it must be extremely heartbreaking and just absolutely devastating for another delay. Let's talk more about the logistics. How does the UN ensure that the aid gets where it needs to be? All that, the aid that you just mentioned, and that it's done lawful and also orderly. We all remember last November when dozens of UNRWA aid-carrying trucks were looted or lost. So once that ability is there to go into the region, how does it happen in an organized way?
Look, our teams are on the ground. We have thousands of employees who work for UNRWA, who are seasoned aid workers, who are there to deliver those supplies. We have hundreds of thousands of people who continue to take shelter in UNRWA buildings. So the aid will be brought from the crossing point as soon as it's allowed in, as we normally do when these aid shipments happen, and then we will deliver straight to the shelters and the people in need. It's going to depend quite a lot on the security overall, on whether, for example, the police will be allowed to deploy, because that helped us a lot in securing these convoys and reducing the looting that you refer to.
And as you're speaking, we're sharing with our viewers images from the region, specifically from the Rafah border crossing, where we're seeing all these trucks basically staging and waiting for that green light to be able to move in to provide that critical aid that you just laid out. What's your organization currently telling those UNRWA, those teams that are on the ground that are basically just kind of caught waiting in a circle pattern?
Yes, our teams are waiting patiently, first of all, for the ceasefire to come into effect, because everybody is absolutely exhausted, and this is a moment that they've been waiting for many, many months now. You see, since the war began, there's been only one very short-lived humanitarian pause, and that was more than a year ago. And so everybody's waiting with anticipation. They're ready to deliver supplies as soon as they are let in.
Yeah, it has to be just heartbreaking for them to have to sit there and wait for that green light. But we got word just a few moments ago of another airstrike in Gaza, a sobering reminder of the risks of going in before that ceasefire takes place, or at least becomes active. Juliette Touma, thank you very much. It's great to see you, and we certainly hope that this pause is short-lived for everybody involved.